Hello, beautiful, blessed beings. Natasha Monique here, Miss Know-It-All, and welcome to episode 2. Alright, last time we were talking about why is it that politicians can just blatantly lie to us. And I went through how Supreme Court deemed it necessary. We're supposed to be able to make informed decisions, even though everyone is lying to us, and the only information we get is how fucked up and shitty the other guy is. We're not really told what the politician who we quote-unquote are supporting is going to do for us. We more hear from that politician how bad the other person is, whether they are lies or not. We still hear it, and we're still able to hear it. Pardon me, I needed water. So that whole segment led me, of course, to a further question, because that's what Miss Know-It-All does. She asks questions and finds the answers. So I'm going to share that with you. My next question was then, how come libel laws don't apply? Like, why aren't these politicians suing these other politicians for all of these insane things that they're saying about each other? Because politicians say things so insane about each other, but people believe them and then act upon them and make decisions and vote based on the crazy, insane conspiracy lies that politicians are saying. And then when that person gets in office, most Americans don't pay attention to how that politician then votes, doesn't even pay attention to the legislation that is being passed through the House and then through the Senate. They don't even know what bills and what laws are being made happen and how they affect them, because they just know that my guy is better than the other guy because my guy told me so. My guy told me that the other guy was so shitty that I had to vote for him. Otherwise, all these horrible things are going to happen. My guy never told me how great they are. They just said, don't vote for that person because they're a pedophile, baby-sucking, worthless, con artist, shifty, throw little old ladies down the stairs person. And no one says, hey, that's not true. Like, you can't just go on and say that and have people repeat that, and it's ruining my reputation, because that's what I thought libel laws were. So that's what this episode is about. It's about libel laws. Libel laws really end the First Amendment. Like, we talked about this fairness doctrine, and that went into the First Amendment, and how it was really considered freedom of speech, that politicians and political pundits can basically say whatever because they're a public figure. So I looked further into libel laws, and that public figure is going to come up again. So what I first started, I've got my notes right here. What are libel laws? Okay, they're facts that can be proven untrue. Such facts cause damage to one's reputation. So I'm like, okay, we see that all the time in American politics. Why are these people not suing? Okay, before I get, because that's the first thing I asked myself when I first read that, so I would still went a little deeper into libel laws. They're spoken, written, or posted. They're harder for a public figure to win libel laws than a private figure. They're meant to give financial compensation to the plaintiff, not to punish the person who was saying the untrue things. Because, of course, in America, we are protected by the First Amendment. So you can say whatever the fuck you want to say, but if you say something that has one of these 5 elements, you can be sued for libel laws. And this is easier for a private citizen to do than for a public citizen to do. So we'll get into that in just a second. So the 5 elements are basically that the plaintiff must prove that the information was published. And for our day and age, that is a Twitter post, a Facebook post, an Instagram post, something in a newspaper or some type of written blog, a podcast, on Facebook Live. Like, there's so many mediums that we have for publication right now. Like, it's just really ridiculous. So that scope is super wide for it to be published. So, must prove the info was published. Plaintiff was directly or indirectly identified. So you have to know that this information was public, and it has to be common knowledge that, oh yeah, you were talking about so-and-so. All right, the remarks were defamatory towards the plaintiff's reputation. So it made them seem inferior, less than. You're saying lies that defame them in a way that people look at them differently. All right, published info was false. So now, if you actually done the deed, if you did it, that doesn't fall under libel laws. Like, if you did it, what they're accusing you of doing, that's just what that is. You did that, and they're just kind of saying their opinion on the fact. So you have to prove that the published information was false, and that the defendant is at fault. The defendant is the one who published that information, so they are at fault for it. It's a civil charge that results in a fine, also called a tort. So it's not actual any type of criminal charges. So then that goes back to my first question as to, so then why don't politicians sue? This is why. They can if they can prove actual malice. Actual malice is that they willingly and knowingly, like they knew the information was false and published it anyway, and they knew that it was going to hurt their reputation and they published it anyway. And of course, what can people say? Well, I got it from this anonymous source that I can't disclose, and I thought it was real and I thought it was true. I didn't know that it wasn't actual evidence. So it's really hard to prove actual malice. Speech is also protected under the First Amendment. So that is harder for public figures to say that what somebody is saying about them is not true, because so much gossip goes on in America. It's ridiculous. Like, we feed off of hate and propaganda. We love hearing that some celebrity, some this, some that is going through a horrible time, whether it be true or not. We want to believe it because we want someone to be doing either just as shittily or more shittily than we are, and that's really not cool. We should want to do the opposite and lift each other up. So now, back to actual malice. Things are proven, like, protected under the First Amendment. If you publish something with knowledge that it was false, or reckless disregard of whether it was false or not, knowing that it was going to damage that person's reputation in a way in which it hurts their business, you have to be able to prove all of that to be able to sue someone for libel laws. And you do. The person who was defamed, not the other person. The person who was defamed has to prove that that individual did all of that. So now, still, why don't politicians do that? You can work for it, improve it. We're a litigious country. We sue people for everything all the time. But for politicians, it's really not worth the hassle. They don't want people in their business, because once you start things like this, they have things like discovery, whereas they dig into everybody's personal BI, the plaintiff and defendant, and, oh, I don't want you digging in my shit. I just want you, okay. So that's a hassle. And then they'd rather just talk shit back than go through a legal channel where they're spending money. By the time the case is settled, the election is usually over. So the public has spoken, and whatever damage is done is already done, because the settlement of whatever it is isn't going to matter, because the people have already voted. So our politicians feel like, well, it's just not worth the hassle, and we have a higher burden of proof. So that's going to take so much time and effort and energy for me to put into winning this lawsuit, and really, I just want to win this election. So let's see who the people trust and believe more. I'm going to throw shit to the wall. They're going to throw shit to the wall. And whoever shit sticks more, that's who wins. Basically, that's how American government goes. Because they really don't care about libel laws as politicians. They really don't care. So now the Supreme Court ruled that the reach of the First Amendment includes media outlets. So that's why we have far right and far left news outlets that can lie to us, because they're protected under the freedom of speech, so they can say whatever. So they can, not only can we hear lies directly from the politicians, but then we can have quote unquote news stations that can be pundits for this particular candidate and say whatever they want to say about this candidate, and they're also protected under the First Amendment freedom of speech. They can spread lies, and they don't have to prove that what they're saying is true, because they're protected under freedom of speech, and we're supposed to be able to make an informed decision. And even though we hear the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, we're supposed to be able to, oh no, that can't possibly be true, even though they know good and damn well we're not looking up what our politicians vote for, what legislation goes through after the fact. We're not looking for that. We're not doing that. The majority of Americans don't do that. So I would like for us to start doing that. Let's start doing that. That is some way in which we can help to shift this balance, okay? Because of the First Amendment, we are subject to hearing lies and misinformation from politicians and government officials. We are the court of public opinion, therefore we make the decision to listen or to turn it off. But how do we know where to go when everyone is allowed to lie to us? What do we do then? We make our own decisions based on our own research. The spiritual effects of this are spreading lies so continuously that we don't believe the truth then. None of us are impeccable with our word, so we don't believe things even when they are completely and absolutely true. We just don't trust anything. We don't trust each other. We don't trust our leaders. We don't trust humanity. And if we can't trust each other, we can't really coexist if we don't trust. Okay, that little bird that like feeds on top of like the hippos and stuff, they know that the hippo's not going to eat them. They trust that that big ass hippo with its huge tusks is not going to eat them, and it can sit there and peck off all the little bugs in its little skin flaps and be cool. They trust one another, so therefore they can coexist. If we don't trust each other, how can we possibly coexist? We don't know who to believe then. There's a thick veil that then comes over us, and we're just like seeing through that thick veil. We're seeing through like 5 feet of fog, and then just whoever is the loudest, that's the one we go to. Doesn't matter what that person is saying, you're just saying it the loudest, and you have enough people saying it with you that feeds that flame so it's louder, and then a lie becomes the truth. That's what happens in American politics. A lie becomes the truth. We are so disingenuous with our word, with our speech, and with the knowledge and wisdom that we're giving out, that we're just willing to fall for anything because we don't even want to go through the effort of finding the things out for ourselves. That makes no sense. It really makes absolutely no sense. What can we do to help support ourselves through things like this? First and foremost, daily energetic shields. Daily energetic shields allow you to absorb the information, the loving parts of that information, and then spew it out in a loving way so that you transform all of the negativity that you get from the external universe, and then you just transmute it and spew it out into a way that actually helps transform, transmute, and uplift humanity. Because that really is what we're here for. We're here to change that. And it starts really from the bottom up and from the top down. Like, we've got to bridge it so that more of us spiritual people are in the top levels. More of us are giving our views to harm none. We are all one. Like those types of as above, so below, those types of tenets that we are just putting into the laws that we have to adhere to in humanity. All of these laws that people are making, they affect all of us, no matter who this congressperson represents. Their speech, their lies, what they say, what they do, it affects every single one of us. So shield ourselves from that energy before we even start to research. I do this every single morning. Just envision like a diamond shield around you. Only love may enter, only love may exit. Supporting candidates that you trust from inside this shield will help to grow those types of candidates that are more in alignment with your energetic self. These are, of course, candidates that are more independent, that don't belong to the DNC and the RNC and don't have super PACs and super advertising groups and conglomerates that put out all the bullshit commercials for them. So they need grassroots building up. They need us to help them build their self up and have a voice and be seen and be heard and be known and be on a platform so that more people can know that there is someone out there that aligns with your beliefs, that wants to transform human society in a way where it benefits the majority instead of what we have right now, which benefits the minority and just shits on the majority. and allows us to be ignorant and in that veil because they like us in that fog, in that veil. They like us to be ignorant. They like us to be lazy. They like us to just sit there and eat the fast food and watch TV and just be dumb and vote for the one who screams the loudest and talks the most shit that you like and says the most horrible things about the other person, when you don't even know that that candidate that you just voted for just passed legislation that cut your Medicaid and Medicare in half and took your land away from you and did all types of abhorrent things to you, doesn't want to increase minimum wage, doesn't want to make it so that your prescriptions aren't costing an arm and a leg and a foot and a tooth, but you voted for that guy just because that guy fed you so many lies. Let's get the veil away. Wake up, open up. Let's open up and get the veil away. And the veil starts with knowledge. So if there's anything that you would like to know, drop it down below. Let me know. I'm always willing to research it. And even from this here, I've got more questions. So stay tuned for the next episode of Miss Know-It-All. I love you all. Merry meet and merry part. Mwah.